Figured I'd give a quick video. I just got done putting these bags on. These are some cheap Amazon saddlebags. Just got them put on the Harley. I bought these like 2 years ago. It was like my camo Crocs. I got these like 2 years ago with the other 48 that I had, and I never put them on that bike. This is a huge pain in the ass. This was way more work than I wanted to do. And I will say this is not an easy thing to do. It just turned into being a lot more work than I anticipated. I'll try to get some good video. This is how I ran the wiring back up through right here, through the frame, through the original hole where the original lights went. I ran it through that same hole, went up under the sissy bar, and drilled a hole in the bag on the inside and pushed it through there. You can see that on the inside here. I still got to do some cleaning up with this electrical. I got to figure out a solution to get this pinned to the wall. That way it's all neat, and I got to tape these splices right here and everything. And then the brackets that came with these bags, I'm gonna put them in. I'm gonna take these out one by one and put the brackets in to give it some more support down low. I mean, it's okay. I want it to be a little bit more sturdy than it is. And I got some holes already drilled on this side for those brackets, but I got to cut the brackets. And so I didn't use these. These came with the box. I didn't mount it the way that it was intended to be mounted. So you're supposed to take this bracket and put them back here on these mounting points, the one here and the one on the front where the sissy bar is. So you'd mount this here, then you mount the bag to this. I did not like how far that it made the bag stick out from the bike. I didn't want an 8-inch gap back here. I wanted them closer to the bike. So I didn't use the brackets that came with this. I just mounted it directly. There's a rubber spacer in between the bag and the sissy bar, but I just mounted them directly to that. I didn't use the bracket that was included. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my grinder, my angle grinder, and I'm gonna cut this bracket off about right here. And I'm still gonna use the bracket for support. So I'm gonna put it in here and drill the holes through the bags, and I'm still gonna put the bracket in there for support. Then I'll probably actually put this bracket on the inside of the bags on this side, just to kind of give it a little bit more, you know, mounting points than just the 2 mounting points. But I'm going to do that a different day. I'm not going to do that today. This took like 2 nights of being out in the garage to put these bags on. Another thing on the front, I just went for the bolts that go through here. I just went sissy bar straight to bag. I didn't do a spacer on the front side, but the bag, I did one back here. You can see the rubber spacer right here. So I did a spacer on the back. The reason being was to get it more, it didn't look right because the back was super tucked in back here, and I wanted that to be pushed out and make it more level. Because you can see the bracket here, this Harley bracket, how it's tapered. It's tapered and gets narrow back here, and up here it's a lot wider and it's thicker. So I didn't like that because the bag was actually at an angle like this. So I just did a spacer in the back to push them out and make them more straight and level. So they turned out pretty good, but it was a nightmare trying to measure these bags. Just trying to measure for the holes for these bags was a nightmare because they're tapered at an angle. And so if you take a measurement here and you're trying to match it on the other side of the other bag to make it symmetrical, you know, and not trying to get it as close as possible, and you can't even measure on a flat surface, and it's really hard. Like when you're measuring on the bag, right, you got a rounded edge, so trying to get any kind of measurements for the holes was a nightmare. It was actually really hard to do. The wiring and all that, feeding that through, that wasn't that big of a deal, but getting the bags mounted on right and symmetrical, that was definitely the hardest part. For the lights, I bought lights I bought some lights from Tractor Supply. They're massive. They're massive size lights. And those lights weren't gonna fit with the bags. They were too big. They would have stuck out on both sides. They wouldn't have sat flush. So what I did was I took the stock lights. So with this being the factory light, this bike had the LEDs. You can see these are the LEDs. So this isn't the factory halogen bulb that actually comes on the Harleys that goes in here. And so this was wired into this plug right here. And that went into the original housing. It twisted in like a regular, it would go in like a regular bulb would go. And so down in there, that's your plugs down in there. So what I did was I took these lights, these factory lights, you pop the smoke cover off, or whatever cover you have. You take this cover off the front, and then you pull out the actual light element there, and then I cut it off. And the rest of this, you don't need the rest of this. It's just the rest of the housing for the stock light. So I took those off, and then I spliced the wiring straight in to this on the back side. And that's what you can see here. It's just spliced in directly to that actual part of the light. And then for the covers, they have the little tabs on them. So then I just broke off the little tabs, and I filed down around the edges of it, just sticking them onto here to the actual bags. So I felt like that turned out pretty good. Just using what I had instead of trying to do a different light option and, trying to do a whole nother set of things. I just used what was already had, and it made it easy for the wiring. I didn't have to revamp the wiring, or I wasn't going from a 3-wire to a 2-wire. That made it simple as far as the wiring is concerned. It was just putting some more wire on it and getting the wires lined up. But I'll turn them on real quick. So it just works the same as it did factory, Throw a blinker on. I think they turned out pretty good. I have speakers as well. That I was going to take a hole saw and cut a hole in this back panel on this side and mount the speakers and have the little amp and all that jazz. That way I could play music louder going down the road or whatever. I don't know if I'm going to actually put them on. If I do, that'll be definitely down the road. I'm pretty pissed off after spending 2 nights in here putting them on. I'm tired. I'm tired of dealing with it for the time being. So another thing, guys, as far as mounting these on here, so the front bolts up here are longer, obviously, because this bracket, is wider. So what I did was I used the front bolts back here, because you're adding more width by adding the bags. So you're going to need longer bolts. The front ones, even with the sissy bar, the front stock ones are long enough though to run on the back end. But then I had to get 2 new ones, 2 longer bolts for the front up here. Another thing with these bags, I know you guys are going to run into a lot of issues with, was it's hard to find a bolt that is, the right length that you need, because it needs to be long enough to go through the bag, if you have a sissy bar or a seat, and through the fender and the actual subframe. So, but it's really hard to find just the right, fit bolt, because if it's too long, then it's going to stick out on the inside under here. And it's going to rub on your tire if it's, sticking over too much, if you get too long of a bolt. So instead of cutting the bolt or losing your hair, pulling your hair out, stressed out, what you can do, guys, is just on this side, you can see this bolt was too long for my comfort. So there wasn't I couldn't find an in-between when I went to Tractor Supply. So I needed at least this length to get all the way through these layers and through the fender, but it was too long for my comfort, and I didn't want it close to the inside of this tire. So just put if you got any washers, or I use a little rubber spacer, some rubber spacers that I had, to put it on the bolt head side over here to adjust the length. I mean, yeah, it's gonna stick out in the bag, you know, 1/8 of an inch, you know, more than it would, but just worry about it on this end. Don't stress yourself out trying to feed it from, you know, this side through, and I mean, you won't be able to do that anyways, but like just put some washers on this bolt head side until you get it far enough away from this tire, you know, to the right length that you want. I don't know if that'll help any of you guys out there or not. It might save you some time, it might not, it might some stress, but anyways, like I said, I got to clean up this wiring. Same thing with this other one. Same deal. I got to clean up the wiring on this side as well. I got to figure out a way to clean that up and route it a little bit better. But yeah, I think for the price, I don't know, I think I paid $90 for these things off Amazon. I'm sure they're not $80 anymore because I bought them 2 years ago. But the last thing I'll say about these bags, guys, is this was not easy. And I'm pretty good at MacGyvering stuff and just working with what I got. And, you know, I keep a whole bin over here full of nuts and bolts and stuff for times when I need them. And so I would not go with this if you are not very good at figuring stuff out and just, you know, making stuff kind of work. Like buying these bags and just having the illusion that you're gonna slap the brackets on and mount the bags right to them and have a good day, you know, that's not a reality. It took a lot more mental work than I care to do again. But so just keep that in mind. It's not super simple like it may seem. But anyways, I just figured I'd give you guys a quick rundown of them, a quick overview of them, and kind of how I got them installed in there, and how I used just the factory lights to mount them to the bags instead of buying separate lights and all that stuff, to just use what I had. And it turned out pretty clean, I think. I think it looks pretty clean, even close up. I mean, I think it turned out about as good as you can, right? Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody you love them. I'll see you in the next one.